All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Appreciate you guys joining me today. Appreciate you, as always, waiting patiently for the stream to start. I hope everybody is doing well on this Wednesday. We got some more topics to talk about. We got a continuation of the rumor regarding Sony acquiring Kadokawa, the parent company of Fromsoftware. Was excited for Stalker 2 on Xbox, but they released another buggy, undercooked mess. Not strictly Xbox's fault, but they shouldn't let this game release if it's broken. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that it's seemingly suffering from some pretty significant performance issues. Well, you know, it is what it is, I guess. It was a game that was on my radar. Maybe still is, but if they do end up releasing it on PlayStation, maybe they'll, by the time that happens, it'll be fixed up and patched up and whatnot. But yeah, we got a couple of other topics that we're going to talk about and discuss today as well. Regarding the PlayStation Portal, I did very briefly go over new information about the PlayStation 6 and the next Sony handheld yesterday. But it was at like the end of the stream, and I just like very quickly went over it. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth today. Another broken Xbox game, the Game Pass effect. I mean, I don't know. It's a third party exclusive, but yeah, I mean, you won't see certain people making videos on this. Certainly not. I mean, they'll be there the moment a game drops on PlayStation that has even just, one flaw. They'll be all over it like flies to shit. But you get something like this. Waylark, you dropped a super chat saying the Fromsoftware subreddit is funny, all dooming. Yeah, IP Gaming, I saw what you said, man. I do appreciate it. I don't know. I don't want to commit to anything. I don't know if I'm going to be collabing. I do Morning with the Misses. There is that, where I do a stream with Mrs. MBG for members. So there is that. Frank, you're saying, let's start the morning off right. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Unknown, you're saying, make it public. Bro, I got to have some members' content. I can't just, I thought about that. I was like, man, what would it be like to offer memberships but no members' content and all the content's just public? I don't think that would, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense, I think that there has to be some incentive. 2 weeks later, I'll think about that. A week later, okay. I get where you're coming from. Timed exclusivity. Uh-oh. No more dual sensibility. No, not at the moment. I'm sorry, IP Gaming. But let's go over the update regarding the Sony-Kadokawa deal. It turns out that it's real. I mean, I got to be honest, I was not expecting to be talking about this again today, but we got a really significant update that I don't think anybody was expecting, because it seems like anytime we've gotten these acquisition rumors, like 99% of the time, they're false. 99% of the time, they're not real. They're not true. It just turns out to be nothing or whatever. This time, it actually was 100% true. It's actually so true that the very next day, Kadokawa actually released a public statement where they confirmed Sony's intent to acquire them. However, and this is the big thing, they said they have not yet made a decision. So it's real. Sony is pursuing the acquisition of Kadokawa, and the rumor was completely true. Now we just have to wait to see if they're actually going to take the deal that Sony offered, or if they're just going to reject it and say no thanks. Saying, not going to lie, Kadokawa confirming seems sus, like they don't intend on selling, but rather want to drive up their stock price. Yeah, it's a little suspicious. And for all we know, this could be what ends the deal. right? Makes it fall through. I did say yesterday when I was reporting on it, I did say that sometimes this stuff getting out and leaking out can be what causes a deal to not go through. And yeah, this is now public. So it really depends. Maybe Kadokawa was already planning on accepting the deal. I'm not sure. Maybe they're going to try to squeeze more out of Sony. They want to sell to a Japanese entity. Their chairman is in jail. Irvin, you're saying we've had the same story with Square Enix and Bloomberg reported around a year ago. Square Enix denied it. Josh, you're saying companies don't like when that happens. Yeah, I don't think so. If the deal doesn't go through, their stock is going to plummet. Yeah, that's true too. That's true. Well, the conversation we had yesterday, I would say, was pretty interesting, but I don't know if you guys noticed what I've noticed, at least since we had this conversation yesterday. Man, it's just the same old fucking song and dance, let me tell you. It's the same thing every single time. I wake up and I'm seeing clips of myself. I'm seeing people come at me, and it's all out of context. It's all totally and completely out of context, and people are running with shit. And it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what I said, because we're not going to show it. We're not going to put that out there. But man, it's the strangest thing I've seen so far. The strangest thing I've seen so far, and this has to be the most brain dead take of all, is the people, specifically the Xbox fans, okay? Like, the hardcore loyal Xbox fans, or the people who are just kind of on that side but not on that side or whatever. They come out and they try to compare Sony acquiring Kadokawa in the gaming space to Activision Blizzard. Like, you got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. But no, they're earnest about it, man. They're serious. They're like, no, well, you were against the acquisition for Activision Blizzard. Now you're pro acquisition. And it's just like, I literally said yesterday, and this is what I mean. This is where it's like these dumb fucks, man. Like can you hear the frustration in my voice? I am frustrated. It's like, I said yesterday, literally yesterday, and I'm saying it again here, this doesn't make consolidation good. It doesn't just suddenly make it okay. I specifically said that the only thing I care about with this deal is Fromsoftware, because I care about the gaming side. That's what I cover here. I did see people saying that this is a really big deal. This is a really big deal in the anime space, and I acknowledge that as well. Like, yeah, apparently, I'm not too familiar with that. I don't follow anime and manga and stuff, but I do know that apparently the biggest part of this deal is that. And apparently, some people believe that this would allow Sony to have a monopoly, and I'm not advocating for that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Sony have a monopoly in anything. I don't want to see any company have a monopoly in anything. That doesn't benefit anybody. But I also can't deny that I cover PlayStation, and I like PlayStation, and I play on PlayStation, and I love Fromsoftware. The ideal situation here, in my opinion, would be if Sony just got Fromsoftware and nothing else. That's all I care about. So from my perspective, it's like I'm witnessing people try to compare Fromsoftware or like Spike Chunsoft, compare them like, yeah, that's the same as Activision Blizzard. And it's like, no, it's not, you dipshit. It's not. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Even if you were to count the entire company of Kadokawa, it's still nowhere near ABK. But people expect you to treat it the same way. That's the disingenuous bullshit that I'm getting tired of. People expect you to treat two completely different things the exact same way. And that's the type of game that these people like to play. That's the type of game that the Xbots specifically and anybody associated with them, that's the game they like to play. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at what's been going on. It's the same thing every time. Microsoft announces they're putting some of their games on PlayStation. Well, hey, Sony's going to do it too. Oh, are they? Yeah, didn't you hear? No, I didn't. When did Sony announce they're putting games on Xbox? Oh, they didn't? Huh. So tell me again how they're doing the same thing. Phil Spencer comes out and said there is no red line, and who knows, maybe even the next fucking Halo is going to come to PlayStation. Meanwhile, you see people, well, what about Sony? Yeah, what about Sony? Well, Lego Horizon. So let me get this straight. Now we're comparing Lego Horizon 2 releasing still not on Xbox, but on Switch 2. That's the same thing? No. See, this is the problem with these people. They try to take two completely different things and convince you and convince all the other people out there that just not, they try to convince themselves while convincing everybody else that they are the same thing. They're showing you an apple, they're showing you an orange, and they're saying they're the same thing. And what's frustrating is the amount of people that look at it and say, yeah, you're right, they are the same thing. Holy shit. It is infuriating to continue to witness this, like, it's perpetual, man. And it's a game. I've always referred to it as a game. It is a game that people continue to play. But, man, I'm just tired of getting dragged into it. I'm tired of seeing, like, clips of myself on shit where it's like, here's a 2-minute clip of just some random thing you said in your video while simultaneously ignoring the fact that I did a fucking 2.5-hour stream yesterday where literally at multiple points in that stream, I talked about how much of a failure the Bungie acquisition was. I talked about how consolidation is still not a good thing. And it doesn't just become a good thing because Sony is now potentially going to acquire Fromsoftware. And most importantly of all, I even went on record specifically stating that when it comes to the Activision Blizzard deal, my read on it was wrong. It was wrong. Yes, that's right. I admitted I was wrong, but that doesn't matter to these dumb fucks because it never mattered and it never will matter. And I'll tell you why it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the people where they're getting their information from are feeding that information through a very specific filter. And they're making sure that you see things through a very specific lens. And you think to yourself, surely people are not this dumb, right? Impossible. How could you be so dumb as to specifically go out of your way to get your information from an individual or multiple people who are filtering everything you see through one specific lens? Well, actually, people are that dumb. People are that dumb because they want to be that dumb. They want to be willfully ignorant. They want to be in the dark because it makes everything easier for them. It's easier to just point and laugh and shit on people and try to slander them. It's easier to do that than it is to actually maybe get the full picture, get the full story, get the context. It's sad, man. Like, and the people who are, the people who are doing this and either making this type of content or doing this constant clipping, they know exactly what they're doing. They are cherry picking what will benefit them the most, what they can profit off of the most, and anything that could potentially open people's eyes to like, oh, wow, now that's the full picture, they purposely leave that out. And it's like an unspoken agreement between them and their audience. And it's fucking pathetic. It's pathetic. And you know what? It's not exclusive to video games. This is happening all over the place, but it's sad that it's even made its way to video games. So, at the end of the day, the only thing that I think is important is for people, as long as you can admit it, fine. I don't expect it to change. It will never change. But at least admit what you are and what you're doing. Admit that you're disingenuous. Admit that you're not trying to show the whole truth. Admit that you don't care about the whole truth. Admit that you're here to just point and laugh and have a good time. Well, I guess to them that is a good time. Admit it. If you can do that, whatever. Know your place. Know where you stand. Don't pretend. But that's the thing, man. At the end of the day, the goal is they just want to continue to rope people into their games, and it is what it is. Waylark, you're saying how the internet works. Everything is a troll or sensationalism. You've been on it long enough to realize this. That is true. That is true. Yeah, Waylark. I know, but you know what the truth is, dude? Like, it can only, like, I've seen it for so long, and it gets to a point where it's like, I gotta say, like, at some point I gotta say something because it's fucking getting ridiculous. Like, it is. Like, if you want to label me a hypocrite, not you, Waylark, but if somebody wants to label me a hypocrite because, well, what'd you say about the ABK deal? Yeah, that's all out there. It's right there for you to see. If you want to know how I felt at the time about the ABK deal, there's a whole fucking, there's a whole line of streams throughout like the last year where you can see that, right? But by the end of it, when it's all said and done and the deal goes through and then we see the results of that deal, and then by the end of it, I come out and I say, you know what? My read on that was wrong. At least have the fucking balls to acknowledge that and point that out as well. Because the level of just fucking ignorance, it's just like, we know you're not this stupid. It's impossible to be this stupid. So at least do that, man. Like, that's the thing I think bothers me the most, is the fact that they're not even willing to do that. I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why. They won't do it because they know the moment they do, it kind of, the whole illusion breaks. The whole illusion breaks. And it's a risk to their own content. It's a risk to their own reputation. But don't give them the attention. I mean, yeah, I'm not trying to give any of this any more attention, but it garners attention. That's why it continues to happen. Whether I do something or not, it's garnering attention. And that's the disturbing part about it. Is the way it used to work is this was just stuff that existed in a cesspool where it belonged. Where it's like, yeah, this is garbage. This is the lowest of the low. What is this? This is like some grade school nonsense or like some high school nonsense drama. And it used to exist at the bottom, at least in the game, at least in this space, it seemed like it did. But now things have changed where it's like, it's no longer at the bottom, and it does get attention, and it does make the rounds. And it just continues to be the cycle, like it gets reinforced, like the behavior gets reinforced is what I'm trying to say. The behavior of, if we continue to be disingenuous, we continue to only put everything we want to show you through this fucking bullshit filter and not show the whole picture, and then they get rewarded for it, then yes, they're going to continue to do it. And that's why I'm saying it's like an unspoken agreement where it's like the people doing it know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. But even worse is the audience. The audience knows what's going on, and they choose to willingly partake in it. Like, what is that shit? I just really have to wonder, like, at what point do people kind of wake up and realize that you're willingly choosing to see things through this specific lens? And at some point, like, you got to wake up and see that there's a lot more going on outside of it that you're not being shown, or you're purposely choosing not to see. Waylark, you're saying just stay off X. I don't know how people go on there. Yeah, well, X for me, or Twitter, it's mostly just asking questions and, sometimes putting out some different posts, but it's not even just there, man. It's like everywhere at this point. And I think that's the part that gets me, and why I'm even talking about it, is because it's gone well beyond just Twitter. That's the fucked up part. A lot of rage bait. Yeah. And I don't know, man. It's just it's a damn shame that this is what it's been reduced to. It's a damn shame. I'm not saying I haven't had my moments. Like, listen, I can admit that I've had my moments where, like, okay, I can understand why I got clipped, or, why I'm seeing the reaction I'm seeing. And that's fine. It happens and it's expected. Like, I want that to be understood. Like, I expect, as, being a content creator and somebody who is not spending all of my time reacting to somebody else's content, but actually trying to have a real conversation with my audience, or trying to make news videos and stuff like that. I understand that there are going to be those moments that pop up. And I've accepted that because it comes with the territory. I'm not going to have the best take or even good takes all the time, right? Nobody does. And anybody who thinks they do is lying to you. And they're not willing to tell you the takes that they know might be a bit controversial. They're not willing to say the things that they know might get people a little upset. They're not willing to do that. Either that, or they just think if they scream it loud enough, well, they don't have to hear anything else. This is what it's turned into, man. They breed conflict with the algorithm. Social media has changed. It's no longer about the likes and the praise. Are you wearing pants? No. I did this whole rant while not wearing pants. Got to keep it light, right? Can't take this too seriously now. You're saying very true. I had an old friend just like that who thinks if he screams, it's real. IP gaming, no way, bro. No, there's no way. I'm sorry if I come off all frustrated. I don't know. I know. Listen, I know at the end of the day, this is just a bit of, a bit of excess unnecessary ranting. It's not that serious. It's not the end all be all. I mean, there are bigger things in life, bigger problems in life. But I guess I just wanted to take this moment because it's, it is annoying to think that my only option is to either do nothing and just let it be what it is, or I now have to go out of my way to try to dismantle what the way people are trying to portray, like, my content and my takes. And I get really frustrated at that thought because it's like, well, that's just, not only is that just going to feed into what they're trying to achieve and their end goal, but it's also going to take away from the other things I'm more interested in. And so I do know at the end of the day, the best option is to just leave it alone and let it be what it is. But I am human, there comes a time where it's like I see something and it's definitely not right. And it's involving me directly and I'm purposely being misrepresented. It's hard not to want to do something about that. But, we're not talking about reasonable people here. It's not like if I did, like, even if I went out of my way to do that, it's not going to suddenly make people go, oh, you know what, man? Yeah, sorry, MBG. We didn't have the full context. No, they're not going to give a shit. They're not going to give a shit. They're just going to laugh. And I guess that's the saddest part of all. Perfect Image, you're saying, am I wrong for gaming? God, I try my best to read with the emotes here. You're saying, are you wrong for gaming only on PlayStation and not Xbox? Is it just me? No, you're not wrong for that. No. I mean, there's no rules against gaming where you want as much as you want. Like, if you want to play only on PlayStation, if you want to play only on Xbox, if you want to play only on PC, if you want to play only on Switch, you're allowed to do that. I mean, somebody might ask, or not ask, but say, hey, you might be missing out on stuff. But no, you're allowed to do what you want. There's no rules against it. And you're not the only one. There are a lot of people where they only really play on one place. I think everybody's kind of dabbled everywhere a little bit, but I think most people kind of settle. They settle into where they want to go. MBG still upset Trump won. No, this has nothing to do with that. And no, I was not upset that Trump won. I mean, I get why some people are upset, but Jesus, man. I mean, I know I'm having a meltdown here, but did you see some of the meltdowns that people were having? My Lord. You would think the world ended. Did you guys know? The world ended like a couple weeks ago. I love how IP Gaming's like, bro, McDonald's has a $1 10-piece nugget meal right now. I knew she was going to do that. Surprise, surprise. Zombie Dragon, you're saying, am I biased towards PlayStation? Yes, from the consumer side. In this deal, good, but no. Hold on, I think I read that wrong. From the consumer side. Microsoft did start this whole acquisition thing, so it's their fault. So it is what it is. Well, I mean, that's the whole thing here. We're still, people are still trying to keep the clash, like the clashing between Microsoft and Sony, and specifically the fan bases, alive. And it's over. Like, it's just over. And I get it. Like, listen, right now it's easy to take what happened with the ABK deal and use that as ammunition against what's going on right now. But again, like, they're not the same thing. They're not. And I'm just at a point where, like, I cannot engage with anybody who believes they're the same thing. The only thing I'm willing to engage with is somebody that might say, okay, well, at the end of the day, though, it's still consolidation, right? And you said consolidation is not good for the industry. It's not ideal for the industry. This is what you said, MBG. But at the end of the day, it's still consolidation. So are you for it or against it? And it's like, listen, you want to make things black and white like that? You go right ahead. But I'm not playing those games because it's literally not that simple, okay? Am I for consolidation if it somehow results in studios getting saved rather than liquidated, and it results in somehow some games improving and getting better? Sure. If that's the overall outcome, I'm still a little bit hesitant, but it's much easier for me to be like, okay, all right, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought. I can be wrong about things. And yeah, in the case of like Firewalk, again, these dumb fucks that just constantly clip. They constantly clip and they constantly insert my content into theirs and then call it their content because, oh, well, I'm providing a commentary. No, you're just shitting on me, but sure, I guess that's commentary, whatever. They refuse. They've never done it. They'll never take any of the clips from any of my streams where it's like, hey, you know how Sony fucked up with Bungie? You know how Sony fucked up with Firewalk? You know how I was kind of wrong about my read of what would happen when Microsoft got ABK? Perfect Image, you're saying your super chat meant the gaming awards. Oh, no. Well, even then, if that's what it meant, I think it still applies, what I said, mostly. But that's the crazy part about it, man, is that, like, the idea is, the expectation is, listen, you said over and over again that the ABK deal was bad for gaming and that Microsoft shouldn't be allowed to acquire them. So you now should say Sony buying Kadokawa would also be bad for gaming and they shouldn't be allowed to buy them. And I get it. Like, that's the concept of keep the same energy, right? That would be keeping the same energy. But the problem with keeping the same energy in this instance is, in doing so, you are defaulting to saying that those are the same things. They're the same type of companies. It's the same scale. It's the same scope, and it has the same exact implications. Wrong. Completely fucking wrong, especially in the gaming space. They're not even remotely comparable. But you know what's so funny about these people? Just to show you how disingenuous and just how far they're willing to go. Do you remember when Jim Ryan was talking last year to the investors, and he was specifically being questioned about the Bungie deal. Jim Ryan was asked, how would you compare the Bungie deal to, say, Microsoft's Activision Blizzard deal? Right? This is what he was asked, because the shareholders are like, bro, are you sure this was a good investment? And Jim Ryan's response, now I'm paraphrasing, but generally what he was conveying, when asked to compare, right? He was asked to compare the Bungie acquisition to the ABK deal. He said that I think we made a good acquisition, and I think in the end it's going to prove to be a better acquisition than the ABK deal. So in other words, if they were both, like, we're going to view them on the same area, like we're going to compare them, which one's better? Jim Ryan said the Bungie deal was better. These people who are right now trying to compare the potential acquisition of Sony and Kadokawa to the ABK deal, these are the same people that were shredding Jim Ryan for saying this. They were mocking him, laughing at him. I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, because it was a silly thing, but they were going ballistic. And like, don't you dare even try to compare these two, bro. They're not even remotely the same. The ABK deal makes the Bungie deal look like a joke. But now, a deal that's potentially going to be made with Kadokawa, a company that actually in the gaming space might even be smaller than Bungie. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but I know they're not that big. I think the gaming sector for Kadokawa only makes up about 12 to 15% of the overall company. But now we're going to try to pretend they're the same, right? But I'm not the one keeping the same energy. Yeah, these people can go fuck themselves, dude. Waylark, you're saying if Sony had Microsoft's money, they would 100% have bought more. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I've talked about that extensively. I've talked extensively about how Sony's not innocent, and this is kind of proof of that. The difference between Sony and Microsoft is Microsoft went nuclear with the safest possible bet they could. And I always said that's an option. My concern overall was Microsoft's going to fucking destroy these studios. If they don't do that, then the second concern is they're going to try to use them to destroy PlayStation. And they just might be able to do that considering how big ABK is. Right? Like, this is like the biggest publisher in the world. It turns out, as of right now, neither of those things have happened. We still don't know what these studios are going to look like underneath Microsoft. We need more time. But right now, it's smooth sailing. And they are not trying to destroy Sony. They're actually like, yeah, we're just going to basically publish our games and just throw them on Game Pass, and that's that. Oh, okay. Like, I did not expect that outcome. Truth, like, honestly, that's why I said I'm willing to admit I was wrong about my read of the ABK deal. I expected it to go much worse. And I get it. There were still the layoffs and you know, a couple studio closures, and that does suck. And that is the shitty part about consolidation. And that's why I say at the end of the day, you know, there can only be so much defense of consolidation and acquisition, where there is downside to it as well. Absolutely. But there is another, you know, there's also potential downside to independence, and that is risk. The risk involved with, well, would you have been liquidated anyway? Would you have went away anyway if nobody picked you up? You know what I mean? And that's like, you know, that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there, because honestly, like, what are you going to do? You know, that we can't live in an alternate timeline where that thing didn't happen and we get to see the result. You just watched MBG age 10 years from stress. YouTube is aging me, bro. But yeah, that's the greatest irony with all of this and everything I'm seeing. It's just that, you know, there's no winning. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And, you know, it gets to a point where it's like, well, fuck it. But I can't really take that approach, because it's like, well, no, the things I'm saying are, you know, I'm being honest and genuine about them. So I can't even, like, I can't pretend that, like, well, actually, here's how I really feel. Like, no, I tell you how I really feel, and I tell you if I'm wrong at the end of the day. No, I'm getting younger. Yeah, that'd be great. Reverse aging. YouTube is causing reverse aging. As long as it benefits Sony, we are happy. But if it is on the Microsoft side, it is bad. I mean, dude, that's not... Listen, are there people who view it that way? Yes. Yes. But, like, that's not at all the approach I've taken. And anybody who tries to portray it that way, and I'm not saying you are, Neutral Zone, but I do encounter people, they try to portray that. It's like, that's not what was said. That's not how it was approached. It's not, if Sony does what Microsoft does, then it's great. The greatest example of this was fucking Concord and Bungie. You know? Where it's like, it is driving me insane. It's driving me insane that it's just like I can sit here for literally 2 hours straight, 4 hours straight in some cases, where the entire fucking stream is dedicated to, we are now going to shred Sony for what they did with Firewalk and Concord. We're gonna put them under the microscope. We're gonna put them in the hot seat, and we are gonna be fucking critical, more critical than we even are towards Microsoft. Same thing with Bungie, and the mindset behind that acquisition. Same thing with the whole live service approach. Literal fucking dedicated streams to this shit. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Sorry, you're just a pony. This is what I mean. This is what continues, and the more people feed into it, the more true it's ultimately going to become, because the perception is the reality. If I take an apple and I take an orange and I put them side by side and say they're the same thing, more and more people are going to say, you're right, they are. Look at that, they're the same thing. Saying that is not what you said yesterday in yesterday's stream, my friend. It is. What I said in my stream yesterday was, would it be bad if literally, the clip is out there. Would it be bad if Sony acquired Fromsoftware and made their games exclusive? And I approached it from multiple standpoints. For me, no, because I fucking play on PlayStation. I'm not going to pretend to be concerned about whether or not Xbox players are getting a game. I don't fucking care. Because that's not my platform. Just like if they're, like right now, I don't think Xbox players are concerned about whether PlayStation players can play Stalker. Why the fuck would they? Like, why would they? No, they're like, yo, can I play this on Xbox? Yeah. Can I play it on Game Pass? Yeah. All right, great. Boom. That's it. That's how far their concern should go. And that's how far it does go. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that if Sony, they make a business decision. But that's just for me. That's for me personally. Just like if you would ask me, is the Activision Blizzard deal going to be bad for you if Microsoft makes their games exclusive? Yeah, it is, because I don't play on Xbox. So yeah, it's going to be bad for me. Okay, well, let's look past myself. Let's look at the bigger picture. What about the industry? Do you care about the industry? Yeah, I do. Okay, well, is this going to be good or bad for the industry? And then if you listen to me closely, again, and you get the full context, I went on to explain that if Sony made Elden Ring 2, for example, exclusive, it's going to hurt Elden Ring 2's reach. If they do Elden Ring 2 and they make it exclusive, if they just do PS5, it's going to hurt its reach. If they just do PS5 and PC, it's still going to hurt its reach, but I don't think Sony cares. That's what I said. I said Sony doesn't fucking care. And you know why I said Sony doesn't care? Because Sony's proven they don't care, because they're not putting games on Xbox. And they're not going to. At least not anytime soon. They wouldn't even put a Lego game. And that's what I mean. You see, it's not that hard to comprehend that, you know what, maybe this is a complex situation and it requires a little bit more than just black and white thinking, and we have to delve into the details. Or maybe if I really want to understand how a person truly feels about this situation, I should listen to them for more than 30 seconds or a minute. Because that's the irony. I see some of these clips, some of them, I'll admit, some of them they're like 6 or 7 minutes long, but people they're only tuning into the first 30 seconds and they think they know what the rest of the conversation was like. Could you imagine having a conversation with somebody like that? Let me just stop you there. I know you had a lot more to say, but let me just stop you there and tell you what I think. Why the fuck would I care what you think? You weren't willing to listen to me. So why the fuck would I care what you have to say? Figuratively literal, you're saying it seems like if Sony doesn't get them, then either Tencent or another Korean or Chinese company will buy. So I don't think independence is an option. That's what I'm thinking too. I do think that if Sony somehow, if they don't get this, I think it's going to go to somebody else. And I think Sony knows that. I mean, that's like, I think that would be the general idea, right? Where it's like, are they really just going to stay independent? No. Wait. Xbox, does this mean that Xbox players are mad because they can't play Lego Horizon? And if not, what the F are they complaining about? I mean, Irfan says you can't expect the mindless to be mindful. Dude, it's funny. It's funny because I'm not putting this word out there. I'm not the one using the word, but I'm just telling you what I was called. Okay? I was like, literally, I was called a retard based off of my stream yesterday. Like, that's how, like, that's not what everybody's saying, but that's what, like, the group of people I'm referring to, that's what they had to say in response. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, dude. Like, that's all you got. That's your response. That's your response. Gotcha. I mean, I know it made me laugh a little bit too, because it's like, of course that's what I should expect. Waylark, you're saying, sadly, I've been seeing a lot of streamers with huge audiences be negative on this purchase from Sony. Their chats have been hella toxic towards PlayStation. And you know what? See, here's another thing. Here's another thing that won't get clipped, right? But I'll say it anyway because it's how I actually feel. I get it. I don't blame people. I completely understand. There is a love for Fromsoftware. Okay? Fromsoftware has an amazing thing going for them right now. And the whole idea is, let's just not risk it. Let's just leave them be. There's no reason to risk this. Fromsoftware is not on the ropes. They don't need saving. So somebody might want them. And in knowing that, oh, well, there you go. There's a risk. They want them. Is that a good thing? Well, maybe. But it's a coin flip. It's a coin flip. And this is what I try to explain to people. You guys get it. A lot of you do. But so many people don't seem to understand the concept of, if Sony gets Fromsoftware, I would say it's a 70-30 split. I think that's a reasonable ratio. That's a reasonable split. 70% chance they don't ruin Fromsoftware. 30% chance they do. Why? Well, MBG, why are you giving them a 70% ratio? Aren't you giving Sony too much credit? Well, let's see. Has Sony worked with Fromsoftware multiple times in the past? Yes, check. They've worked with them multiple times in the past. So we already know that Sony is willing to give them the creative freedom that they expect to have. I mean, for God's sakes, their most, coveted game, seemingly, that being, I don't know if it's their most coveted to some people it is, but Bloodborne, to a lot of people, is their most coveted game. That was made in development with Sony. With Sony. Not without Sony, with Sony. But Fromsoftware has proven they don't need Sony to make great games. Elden Ring, Sony had nothing to do with that. But the point is, if we're going to go down that road of like, well, we should be very concerned. Okay, well, see, and here's another thing I don't understand. People gaslit me into thinking, you're fucking crazy, MBG. You're a crazed fanboy. Sorry, I'm breaking character here a little bit because it's like, yeah, I am a crazed fanboy. Anyway, you're fucking crazy, MBG. You are a crazed, deranged, lunatic fanboy pony. Why? Because you don't want to see Microsoft acquire ABK because you think they're going to ruin it. You think they're going to ruin Call of Duty. And it's like, bro, I'm not just saying this shit for the sake of saying it. I'm throwing my concern out there because it's like, have you seen what Microsoft has done with their studios and their games? Are we just going to we're really going to sit here, right? See, this is the type of gaslighting you do. We're really going to sit here and we're going to fucking pretend that Microsoft's just been fucking lighting it up since 2015, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. We're just going to pretend that they haven't been a complete fucking shit show the entire time. No, we are going to pretend. And we're going to approach this with good faith. Do you understand? Good faith. Do you know why? Because Game Pass. That's why. And you know what I say to that? Okay. Hey, man. Microsoft had it locked. They had their fucking ace up the sleeve. The ace up the sleeve is you can't be too critical because we're going to put them in Game Pass. So give us a chance, will you? Okay. Bravo. I tip my hat to you, Microsoft. But when Sony is out here potentially going to acquire a studio they fucking worked with multiple times and produced some of the best games with. Oh my God. Fuck. It's over, bro. Sony's going to ruin them. It's the next Concord. They're going to make Fromsoftware make Concord 2. That's what they're going to do. I'm losing it. I'm snapping. It's happening. Fuck it, we'll do it live. I knew I shouldn't have streamed today. No, but that's pretty funny. That's some funny shit though right there, man. Fromsoftware being tasked with making Concord 2. James, you're saying Capcom next. I don't know, man. I don't think Capcom's next. I think Capcom's fine where they are. Antonio, you're saying, to be fair, I think most people are complaining about the two because it's consolidation all the same. Microsoft bought ABK because they have the money. The only difference is the scale of the acquisition Sony can afford. And I think that's fair, Antonio. And that's the thing is like the people, because I do want to be clear, there are reasonable people with reasonable takes, and that is a reasonable take. If it's like, listen, man, at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to get excited for this shit because, you know, it's consolidation all the same, and we were going to get these products either way. And I'm fully behind that. That's why I still said in my stream yesterday that at the end of the day, consolidation is still mostly a bad thing, right? But it all depends on which type of faith you're approaching it with. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I am a crazed lunatic fanboy because I basically decided that, you know, I actually do trust Sony with FromSoft. I do. And I say that as somebody... Boss is like, oh my God, bro, this guy again. Is he really screaming again? I thought we were past this shit. He like, dude, boss doesn't even want to be bothered with me. He's literally like, he's looking at me like, are you done? Can I fucking have my treats now, dude? I've been dealing with this long enough. Anyway, I guess I'm trying to say here that that's a totally fair and reasonable take, that it is consolidation all the same, but I do trust Sony with FromSoftware. And I will say that if Sony fucked up with FromSoftware, I would be devastated because FromSoftware is one of my favorite studios. FromSoftware is one of my favorite studios. You know, it's a studio that I guess, to be honest, the idea of them collaborating with Sony again, but on an even deeper level, piques my interest. And you know, what's funny is like, when it comes to the whole idea of exclusivity as well, I mean, I did go on record saying yesterday that I could see them still just staying multi-plat and releasing their games on Xbox. And if that's the case, like, who cares? Like, I'm not going to care about that. You know what I mean? Like, if Sony wanted to make the game exclusive, a FromSoftware game exclusive, to sell consoles, I get it. That's your prerogative. That's your business. It kind of makes sense to do that. If they're like, no, we actually want to maximize sales because this game was already multi-platform, so that's just what we're going to do, I totally get that as well. It's no skin off my back, you know, like, sure, whatever. Boss definitely has that "are you okay, bro" look. He's got the sideways ears going. The airplane ears. Boss, what do you think of this, man? He said, I think you need to calm the fuck down, man. I think you need to bring it down. I'm in rare form today, you know? I don't really get like this anymore. But yeah, I get it. Like, at the end of the day, what we want to see are most studios remaining independent, most publishers remaining independent, and being able to operate on their own without any interference. But one of the things I also said yesterday that I want to reiterate here is I've relaxed my opinion on consolidation for one simple reason, because it's going to happen anyway. I've come to accept that. Like, it doesn't, like, it's not like Sony is like, oh, I should tune into MBG stream and hear what he has to say about us buying Kadokawa. Does he think it's good or bad? Like, no, that's not what's happening. Just like Microsoft didn't tune into any of my streams and say, well, what does MBG think of this? It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. The reality of the situation is, if the corporation offers a deal that the other company feels is worth it, there's nothing we can do to stop that. And whether I'm for it or against it doesn't change the outcome. So because of this, once, I specifically remember saying too that, like, once the ABK deal is done, if that does go through, which it did go through, I'm like, well, this is it, man. Like, it's free game now. Like, it's open season. This is as high as it goes. So if Microsoft can just casually come in, scoop up ABK, and walk away with them, nothing's safe now. Nothing's off limits. And it would be foolish of me to think that Sony, among other publishers, are not going to continue down this road. They are. But I would make the argument that, putting the anime stuff aside and just looking at the gaming side of things, I don't think Fromsoftware being with Sony is the worst thing in the world. I think like when Sony acquired Bungie, that's like a what? Firewalk? Haven? What are these studios? But it's like, oh, Sony bought Bluepoint. Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I could see that working. Housemarque, yeah, another one that makes sense. And I get it. Maybe there's people that think, well, Fromsoftware is bigger than Sony. They're bigger than PlayStation. I'm like, well, if that was the case, then why did they do so many exclusive games with them? Maybe they're referring to Elden Ring. Now they're bigger because of Elden Ring. Yeah, that may be true, but at the end of the day, like, again, what can be said to change the outcome? Nothing. You wonder what FromSoft thinks of the acquisition? You think they'll try to buy themselves out and be independent before someone acquires them? I doubt it. Because FromSoftware has also been known, like, they do work with public. Dude, they worked with Activision. I think people forget that. Like, FromSoftware allowed Activision to publish and own the Sekiro IP. They worked with Bandai Namco for Dark Souls. They worked with Sony. Like, to be honest, I mean, Miyazaki, I think he's the president now he's been the president of FromSoftware. I don't think he gives a shit, dude. I think he's just like, listen, as long as you let me make what I want, we're not going to have any problems. You can own the IP, you can do what you want, but just let us make what we want. And I think that's fair. Like, I think that there's a kind of understanding, like a mutual understanding and agreement between FromSoftware and any publisher they choose to work with, that, like, as long as you just let us have the creative freedom, we're fine. Like, there's no problems from us. And again, I went on this whole story yesterday. I told the whole story about Demon Souls. I told that whole story because I thought that was important, where it shows that Sony has a deep history of screwing up with FromSoftware, and they had to learn the hard way. So that reinforces my good faith in Sony with FromSoftware. And I think more people should try to understand that Sony did fuck up in that they did not, well, to be fair, they did let FromSoftware have ultimate creative freedom with Demon Souls, but they just thought it was a huge mistake. They were like, this is not good. But now they see what Miyazaki saw from the beginnings and Sony didn't see in the beginning. Now they see, because Miyazaki proved, and FromSoftware proved, like, no, this can be a thing. This can be a big thing. So it'll just be like Kojima Productions. I mean, mostly, I would say. I think it's kind of a similar thing where they're like, yeah, sure, Kojima. Like, I mean, it's like, dude, I'm sure some Sony executives, when they saw the first demo of Death Stranding, they were like, like, they were like, oh my God, what did we do? Like they were sweating. Some, not everybody, but certainly some of the higher executives at Sony, when they first saw Death Stranding, they were like, how much did we invest in this game? But it worked out, because you got to trust the process, man. Like, Kojima knew that there's going to be an audience for this game. Trust me, Just trust the process, you know? And I think Fromsoftware is in the same boat. But the difference here, Waylark, would be that Sony is, if they do acquire Kadokawa, it seems like they're going to have essentially full ownership of Fromsoftware. It might be handled differently. Yeah, right. Sony also trusted Firewalk. Yeah. It might be handled differently, but I think what's most likely to happen is they will get folded into PlayStation Studios. You know, and I think Sony would want that. And I think, to be honest, I think Fromsoftware would want that, because it's like, bro, you're going to have access to a lot of new resources that you didn't previously. And it doesn't mean they're going to have to use them or utilize them, but they might, and that could help, you know? It means that if a remake of Bloodborne does happen and Fromsoftware doesn't do it, Fromsoftware is going to be right there to be able to consult on it, no problem, and to a degree be part of it. And I just think that these are the things that some people are not really thinking about. And again, this doesn't have to come at the expense of, well, they got to make it exclusive. No, they don't have to. I just think Sony's got to be careful. They got to be careful, because one of the biggest problems I saw with the Bungie acquisition, I didn't think the problem was, oh, they want to put Marathon on Xbox. What the fuck? Like, no, that's not what I thought. What I thought was, how do your other studios feel about that? Because developers have went on record saying, like, yeah, we don't really care about exclusivity. We just want our game to be everywhere. That's Sony's decision. So Sony basically turned to Bungie and said, yeah, you guys do whatever you want. Whatever you want. And then they turned to, like, Insomniac, you know, Santa Monica, everybody else. They turned to every other studio like, no, you can't release that on Switch and Xbox. Are you crazy? You know what I mean? So this is why I feel like if Sony does get Fromsoftware, they have to be careful in their approach, where you don't want to give special treatment in a sense that it's going to annoy your current studios that you own and be like, well, why can't we do that? You know what I mean? I mean, Sony can do whatever they want, but I just don't think that that's a wise thing, because I just don't think you want to create that type of potential tension. It's unnecessary. But that's their problem. That's not my problem, you know? They'll have to figure that out if they acquire Fromsoftware. Waylark with another super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. You're saying, people seem to forget when Kojima started his production company, he said from the very start he wanted to make games for multiple platforms. Sony was first because he has a good relationship with them. I do remember that. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm actually not surprised at all that Kojima, it turns out, like, Kojima owned the Death Stranding IP the whole time, or there was some kind of, like, transfer that occurred where Sony's like, we're just going to hold it for like 5 years and then it goes to you and you do what you want. And I'm sure Kojima, like, I think he was kind of okay to do that, you know? It's like, well, why would he do that if he wanted to ship on multiple platforms? Because it's like, well, Sony's offering him a lot. And I think, you know, Sony's like, they're fronting the bill. They're helping him start up a studio. They're giving him their technology. They're treating him like a first-party studio, dude. So, you know, the expectation of, like, so in return, we just kind of expect you to agree to this 5-year deal. And then after that, it's all yours, buddy. That makes sense. I think Kojima has that leverage to be able to pull something like that off. I think he's one of the few that could. But yeah, it's one of these things where some people do believe that Sony is actually going to do what Microsoft is doing. And I could be wrong. You know, this is one of those things where it's like, I don't see that happening right now. I don't. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I will admit to being wrong. It's not that big of a deal. But right now, I don't think Sony has this kind of approach where it's like, but what if we did just embrace multi-platform? Like, I mean, multi-console. Not even, because some people do believe technically PC, it makes it multi-platform. I'm talking like multi-console. Bro, you can't chew the mic. I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. You just can't chew the mic. What if we did do this? You know, we did just go multi-console. I don't think that's the thought process that Sony has right now. I think the thought process that Sony has right now is we're still number one in the console, you know, the console, the current gen console race. We know that Nintendo's not doing this anytime soon. We know that Microsoft is basically not really competing in the console space anymore. So we got what we wanted. Maybe we just do it at our own discretion. If we want more money from a game, we'll figure out how to make more money from that game in due time. But this is where I think Microsoft has tried once again to convince people that they're the leader, and they're not. They're technically a leader in, from a major corporate standpoint, in that, like, yeah, they're worth more than Sony, and they're a bigger company than Sony. But in terms of the gaming space, they're not a leader. They were the opposite. Microsoft was in third place with the platform holders and the console manufacturers. And, it's like when people say, well, if Sony had the money, they'd be making bigger purchases. Yeah, just like if Microsoft had more console sales, they'd still be doing exclusives. See how that works? It's a bunch of coulda, shoulda, woulda, and it doesn't matter. The point here being that the more we see stuff like this happen, where it's like how Sony approaches acquisitions versus how Microsoft approaches them, how Sony approaches studios, how Microsoft approaches them, we cannot treat them the same, because they are not the same. We can do the woulda, coulda, shoulda thing, but it's kind of a pointless exercise. At the end of the day, I think what Sony has proven is that they take a more, I don't know if thoughtful approach, maybe thoughtful isn't the word, a more cautious approach with how they choose to handle this stuff. And Microsoft is not. Microsoft is clearly very much doing the opposite, where they're like, hey, bro, we just want to make money as a publisher. And that's where we're headed. And they're not hiding it. They're not hiding it. They're not taking their time. They're just briskly walking to that destination. And they're not trying to hide it anymore. And I think that this is why it's just, we need to understand that when we talk about these things, they are simply not the same. Sony is still trying to hide it. If they're not trying to hide it, then, that makes it seem like that is their ultimate plan, but maybe that isn't their ultimate plan. I think what's happening right now is Sony still believes in the console space. Like, I think that's just the most important thing for people to understand. They still believe in it. And the reason they believe in it is because there's the data, the results, nothing has happened to them to make them believe otherwise. Sony did not experience what Microsoft experienced. Sony is not looking at PS5 sales being down by 40% or something like that. They're not looking at the PS5 selling, like 10 million below the PS4 at the same, timeline. They're not looking at any of these things. They're looking at the opposite. The PS5 still doing, even while Sony is putting some of their games on PC and they are experimenting, their console's still selling great. The Pro is doing fine, apparently. Which, I mean, if I was Sony, it's a good thing I'm not working at Sony, because I would be like, holy shit, it's over. Like, I would have saw what the internet was saying. I'm like, it's over, guys. We made the biggest mistake ever. This thing's not going to sell. And you know what the craziest part is? You get people, you get these loudmouths out here, and they make it seem like, well, yeah, because, people just eat up anything Sony does. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, sure, there are some people, like a few select people out there, that will just literally support anything Sony does. But did you not just see Concord? Is Concord not enough proof for these people who want to use this excuse that people just, they're the Apple of gaming. They'll eat up anything they do. Did you not just see Concord? Concord is absolute proof that's not true. False. Turns out, if Sony makes a bad enough decision that enough people find to be just a bad decision, they won't support it. So maybe, just maybe, and I know this is a difficult concept for some of these people to grasp, people actually kind of like what Sony's doing. Could it be that? Could it be that Sony is doing some things that people actually like? And that just because you don't like it, and the people who follow you don't like it, turns out you don't fucking speak for everybody. And you certainly don't speak for the majority. Is that a possibility? I'm going to go a step further and say that's not a possibility. That's the reality. I didn't make it that way. Xbox can force Bethesda to turn Starfield into an exclusive. Sony can make Fromsoftware develop exclusive games. Yeah, where are these people where are they talking about Starfield? Where are the same people that were like, bro, Elder Scrolls and Starfield are going to be exclusive? Cry about it. Like, where are they? I don't see them anywhere. Saying MBG, but they're looking at their extremely slim margins, and the board wants options and actions to grow them quickly and substantially. The status quo isn't enough anymore. I mean, it's hard to say, okay, like, is that their long-term view, or is that their short-term goal? And that goal is more short-term because of the losses they've experienced in the last couple of years because of bad investments. That's the thing here, is like, I'm not fully convinced that the board is willing to just do anything necessary, anything they have to do by any means necessary to greatly increase the profits. I think right now they're willing to do some things they otherwise wouldn't because of the loss of Firewalk and Bungie and stuff like that. But I don't know that they're going to let that basically dictate their long-term strategy. Hellbound comes in, the legend, and drops 5 membership gifts for you guys. Hellbound, thank you so much, my friend. Always being supportive with the membership gifts. I do appreciate it. Let me update this real quick. I mean, you could be right, okay, but it's one of these things where, like, I think some of the things that Sony's doing right now prove that. It shows that, like, yeah, we do want to get higher profits right now. But again, I people make the joke, like, it's the Concord tax. I'm like, yeah, I think it is to a degree. Saying boss looks sad. He does look a little sad. Are we gonna do it today, guys? Are we gonna be able to feed the beast? Can we say Kadokawa itself is on par with ZeniMax? I mean, I would say, like, value-wise, maybe. I don't really know. I mean, from a gaming perspective, no, I would say. Viewing it just from a gaming standpoint, I think they're much, much smaller than Bethesda. Or maybe not much, much smaller, but definitely smaller. Yeah, I would say ZeniMax is more, again, just looking at it from the gaming side. If you're talking about overall value, it could be close. But that's what makes this acquisition different, right? Is, even when we look at the ABK deal, people were like, well, you can't forget King Mobile. And I'm like, yeah, but that's still gaming related. You know what I mean? Like, that's still gaming. When you look at Kadokawa, the biggest reason why Sony's going to acquire them is for their anime and manga stuff. And, like, that's just not gaming. That's a totally different thing. Like, it's completely separate from gaming. And I think that's what makes this acquisition a bit different and unique compared to what we've seen thus far. They have tons of stuff, though, even insurance. So ask, will a purchase of this magnitude and cost put less or more pressure on Sony's divisions to grow their margins? I mean, undoubtedly, it will put more pressure. Yes. And that's one thing we can learn by looking at the result of the ABK deal is, I don't think anybody, even maybe some people at Microsoft, weren't even thinking about it that deeply about, like, once this goes through, the pressure's on. Now the hard part really begins. And yes, this does, you're right. And in that sense, this is why I'm still skeptical at the end of the day. It's why I said 70-30, man. 30%, this could not go the way I was hoping or the way anybody was hoping. This could be a bad thing. But I guess I just feel like the pressure, again, maybe we could make that argument that the pressure is already there and that pressure came from the failed acquisitions. And maybe if this turns out to be a better acquisition in terms of it does produce profit much quicker and it's, everything's going smooth and they're making money, that I think that maybe that could ultimately help alleviate things a little bit, potentially. But yeah, I get the bigger picture here is that the more money you spend, the greater the risk you're taking, the more pressure there is to make sure you can not only make that money back, whether it be by whoever you're purchasing or anybody else that you own, the pressure's there, and it does increase. Waylark with another super chat says, with console sales being down 22% in Sony's report, but game sales up 28%, do you think if it constantly shows numbers like that, they'll sell games elsewhere? I think if Sony, well, I will say this. Sony did say that they expect that going forward, I think going forward, they said they expect PS5 sales to continue to go lower and lower, that they did peak. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. It's just saying that's what they're, hold on. Okay. Yeah, it seems to me that they, sorry, I'm just getting caught up in something here. The Tokyo Stock Exchange has issued an alert to investors regarding Sony Group's ongoing acquisition talks with Kadokawa. The reason given for the alert is, quote, unclear information regarding acquisition has arisen. Okay, so that's like the latest update. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to check that out. Yeah, I don't think if it continues this way, they'll just start selling games elsewhere. I think listen, my honest thought on this is I think Sony is going to go all in with the PlayStation 6. And I think Sony's going to view it as like, this is the last time realistically that we can probably go all in safely. And there's still risk in doing that. But I think it's because if Sony had to take their chances, right? Let me simplify what I'm trying to say. I don't think Sony will do what Microsoft is doing until they are put in Microsoft's position or very close to it. Does that make it easy to understand my opinion on that? I think it'll simply take Sony seeing really, really underwhelming, maybe damn near disastrous results before they're like, well, we can't do this anymore. This ain't working. I don't think they'll wait as long, but I think the idea is like they believe that they can maybe go. I think the PlayStation 6 launch will determine. I'll be honest. I think Sony's going to approach the PlayStation 6 launch where they're going to have Plan A and Plan B, and Plan B is the backup, right? I think Plan A is we're approaching it like we always have. It's a new generation. We're going to have a couple of exclusives. We might still do some cross-gen because that's the expectation now, but we're pushing the console. And maybe it'll be a family of consoles. Apparently, they're going to do like a handheld, but we're going all in with our hardware. And I think Plan B will be, if that doesn't work, if by the time we approach the launch of the PS6, it becomes abundantly clear that, yeah, this is kind of over. Like, you're still going to get millions of sales. You're still going to make good money, but the growth, like, you're not anywhere near matching the PS4 or the PS5. It's now you're going downhill, right? The peak, you reached the peak, and there's no going up from here. I think their backup plan is a swift pivot. And the reason why I think that would be the best time, like, I think that's going to be their plan, because think of it like this. Think of it like this. If you're Sony, you could enable that plan and enact it right now. Sony could come out literally at the beginning of 2025 and be like, guys, we're making some significant changes. We're going day and date on PC with all of our games, and we're going to start experimenting with launching some of our games onto other consoles, like more frequently. Like, expect that. That's what we're doing. I don't think they would announce that, but let's just hypothetical here. They could do that, and they could signal a major shift and pivot. If they do that, they risk killing momentum for the PlayStation 6 before it even begins. Now, if you wait until after the PS6 launches and you wait to see how that goes, well, think of it this way. Worst case scenario, you have no choice but to pivot, because people are not supporting the PlayStation console the way they once did, and people are kind of over that, right? There's no more growth to be had. It's going to be a lot easier for Sony to make that change and make that shift when their back is already, not, I don't want to say back against the wall, but the numbers, like, it's already there. You know what I mean? Like, well, here you go, guys. Like, we can't do this anymore. So here's why. Here's the numbers. We're showing them to you. So this is why. And I think that that's, again, when you look at Microsoft and you look at Phil Spencer and you listen to the things he said, he basically said that in so many words. He's like, well, we're thinking about the overall health of the Xbox brand, and we got to do what we got to do. And it's true. You know, it's true. It's like, it's reached a point where they can't convince people to buy Xboxes the way in which they need them to buy the console. Sony's not there yet. And I don't think Sony believes they're there, and I don't think Sony believes they're going to get there. I think Sony believes the PS5 is going to sell just as well, or very close to as well as the PS4 did. And I think because of that, they're going to have the same general expectation for the PlayStation 6. And there will be a plan B where if it doesn't go that way and it all goes to shit, and it's like we're like looking at PS3 numbers or something, or like half of what we saw with PS5, then I think they break the glass in the emergency and they say, all right, here we go, guys. We're making a big pivot. This is what we're doing. I think that's the outcome there. Let's see. We have Rich Rod. He says, Xbox gamers, STFU. You took Bethesda Game Studios games from PS gamers. Now you deserve 0 from games, you ugly POSs. You're saying Colt, Jez, and Cyborg and Kojima. Go play on Xbox, you punk bitches. Oh my God. Rich Rod's throwing Kojima in there now, which is ironic because that man's making a PS5 console exclusive right now. Rich Rod is going nuts. Rich, thank you for the donation. Hold on. Steven's like, preach, Rich Rod, preach. I mean, it's true, man. Microsoft tried to take away Bethesda games at first. You're saying that shift will never make them more money. They don't have ABK, Bethesda, Obsidian, Minecraft, etc. Just live on third party. Well, I mean, that's another aspect here, man, that I think we do need to acknowledge, that, you know, Sony might never make that shift, because it turns out that even if they have less people, well, I don't know. See, that kind of goes against what the board likely feels pressured to do by shareholders. I was going to say that if they get less people buying the console, they'll kind of be okay with that, because it's like, well, you know, everything's premium and expensive, and the people who are supporting are willing to pay for it. And so the numbers may not be the greatest, but the money made is good. I don't know. Sony Sony is now a company, dude. Sony is a company now that does in fact care very much about MAUs, monthly active users. They now view that as like the potentially, most important. I think they've even went on record, the CEO anyway, said that's the most important stat for them, the most important number. And so that is something that we have to consider. I think Sony thinks that they can do what Microsoft does, and that to me is flawed thinking, because it's like, but you do stuff better than they do it now. I mean, not everything all the time, but mostly, generally speaking, you do stuff better than they do. Like, you're doing it better than them. The stuff you're making is better than what they're making. And that's what's kind of weird to me, is like, if they fall into that kind of trap of like that I would say is the biggest fear, right? Is like, not fear. That's an exaggeration, but that's the thing that so many of these people are betting on. Is like, no, dude, Sony wants what Microsoft's chasing after too. It's like, well, yeah, they do want growth, but shit, man, like, I don't know. I don't know that I'm convinced that Microsoft is forging the right path. I think they are forging maybe it's not right to use the terminology right or wrong. But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know that Sony would be wise to ever believe that they need to forge or go down the same path that Microsoft is, because I think Microsoft is fundamentally just a different company than Sony from top to bottom, And I think that if you look at where these two companies stand, one is a top 3 company in the world worth trillions of dollars. Sony is not that. Sony is a huge, huge corporation, massive conglomerate. And I'm not saying that means that they shouldn't care to grow. They should continue to try to grow. But I really don't think that they should try to grow in that type of way that Microsoft is trying to grow, because I don't think that will work for Sony. If you're happy with their current business model, what is your solution to growing their margins while not changing the console-first approach you enjoy? God damn it, okay. I'm not in charge of Sony. Man, if I had to answer that, I'd be applying for a position at Sony. Like, look, I know what to do. I don't know. I'd have to think about that, because that is a tough one. That's a tough one. Well, you know what? All right, here's what I would do, and I'm not saying it would work. I mean, no plan that any of these executives conjure up necessarily have a guarantee, but I think Jim Ryan was onto something with the live service thing. I just think the big problem was he underestimated the path, like the journey to get to that point. Like, I feel like Jim Ryan, he was definitely trying to sell, and I get it. It's you do have to sell the investors on it because it's a big investment. But he was really trying to sell them on, like, guys, if we just get 2 big games, even just 1 big game, you're just dollar signs everywhere, bro. And he's not wrong. But there was this underestimation greatly, I think, of what it would take. Again, like the journey to get that. Okay, boss, bro, I love you, man. I love you, but you can't bite my mic. It's not time yet, all right? It's not time yet. And so I think what my strategy would be, it would be to keep the console at the center, continue to try to to push console sales and to keep that momentum. And honestly, if it came down to it, if it's like, but sir, we can't really do a next gen. We can't do a next gen without it being like $700. I would say then scale down the hardware. I would. And I'd say, you know what we're going to do instead? We're going to mitigate that by bringing back true exclusivity. Not for everything, but for single player. And the reason why I would do this is, I'll be honest, like, I'm a believer in that. I do believe that exclusive games move hardware. And I mean like real exclusives. Like, you can't play this anywhere. I wouldn't do it for live service games or multiplayer games. But for the single player games, I would go back to that. And I would say, listen, the hardware upgrade might not be like, you know, the best of the best you've ever seen, because we're seeing the law of diminishing returns. It's in full effect here. But instead, those games will look better. They will run better. The hardware will be affordable, but you will get true exclusives. We're going to show you these exclusives. And, see, from a development I guess at that point, the only other thing I would try to incorporate as well is I would definitely continue, and I know this sounds shitty, but I would definitely continue to try to secure like some exclusives if possible, because I would also understand that, well, if your studios are taking this long to output games, you know, we see the problem that some people have already where they don't want to wait around as long and it doesn't feel worth it. You know, one game every 7 years. So I would still try to, you know, have a healthy amount of partnerships, I guess you could say. But that's the approach I would take, because from that point forward, my bread and butter, not hope, but like my play would be, we can have that winner. We can, like, live service wise, I know we can do it, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some luck. And I would approach it with that mentality. And I would honestly say, like, if the investors, and this is why I would get fired, and you know, the board would not be happy with me, but I would have to try to convince them, like, listen, guys, like, live service games are not going anywhere. They are not going anywhere. Okay? Like, live service games are basically the end game of, it's like, that's again where I think Jim Ryan was correct. He's like, it's a service within a game. You know, if we can't make our service on our platform successful, we can make a service within our game successful. That's what Microsoft bought. That's what Call of Duty is. They bought a service, dude. It's a game, but it's a service. You know, they bought it. And now it's theirs. The entire storefront and everything. Sony they need to, and I'm not even going to sit here and say that I would know exactly what to do, but I just think that it's going to take potentially years. But Sony, if they continue to pursue it and chip away at it, they will release a live service game that it will be that hit. It will be. I don't know what game I don't know what game it would be, but I do believe that if they got that, then that's it. That's it. From that point forward, you know, you continue investing in live service, try to emulate that, try to replicate that. Don't force it, but I don't know, man. I guess I don't think PC is going to save Sony, dude. And Xbox isn't going to save Sony. And I mean, we could make an argument that Switch 2 might do it, but I don't think any of these things are going to save Sony. I think the only thing that's going to really save Sony, if you want to talk about using the term save, and I'm using the term save, but that's the wrong term to use, grow. I think that Sony's not going to find the type of growth they're looking to achieve without making a drastic, like, fucking complete upheaval of what PlayStation is. And I think that's just the reality of it. I think that's the reality of it. That's what I think. I think that Sony has this desire to grow beyond what they've established, but they're kind of struggling because it's like, you know, I think they're kind of waking up to the idea that the only way you do that is by getting further away from what you've established. Sony appealed to a certain market, to a certain core group of gamers, and so did Microsoft. But once they hit that ceiling, man, Polar Ninja, you're saying, what are your expectations for next-gen games? SSD was a little overmarketed. Wasn't really the gameplay transforming feature it was touted to be. Yeah, it does seem like that's how it turned out. I mean, I see somebody saying the SSD was absolutely not overmarketed. I will say this. I think it wasn't overmarketed. I think, and I put myself in this group, I think I overhyped it. I think a lot of PlayStation fans overhyped it because we bought into Mark Cerny's hope Because if you go back and listen to what Mark Cerny said, he didn't say this is guaranteed to happen. He said his hope was that developers would be able to leverage the speed of the SSD to be able to make some dramatic gameplay changes. That was his hope. He didn't say whether or not it would happen guaranteed. And I think a lot of us bought into that. We're like, yes, that sounds great. Make it happen. But I think we're just kind of at that point where it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe that's just not really what developers want it to do. Machine learning, AI, and ray tracing are the future of gaming tech. We could see bigger leaps than y'all think. I mean, I would agree with that, Garrett. I think those things are the leaps that we're going to see. But I do think that, I don't know, man. I think Sony, I just think they got to take a good fucking look at Nintendo, man. I really mean that. And like, listen, exclusivity. It works. It does. Just saying. It does work. It has worked. And I'm not saying that Sony can expect all of their games or even any of their games to sell as well as some of Nintendo's biggest exclusives. But I just think it's like Nintendo is, I think, the upper limit. Yeah. I know. Saying Nintendo is a smaller business, though, just saying. And that's what I mean, man. That's what kind of sucks about this is that Sony's corporate goals are in some ways just as shitty as a lot of Microsoft's, where it's just this obsessive growth mindset of like, we got to get bigger, no matter what. And that sometimes is annoying as shit because it's like, at what cost though? You know? At what cost? Like, is it really so bad to just kind of maybe reach a really high level and just say, this is good enough. Let's maintain this. Digital Dude says, I'm watching you on my MetaQuest 3 right now. That's funny. The industry has changed and MBG doesn't want to accept it. Well, it's not that I don't want to accept it. It's just that, I don't know. I still have maybe a more old school or an older school mentality in that, like, I don't really care so much about, like, when we talk about exclusivity, I don't say that Sony should do exclusivity because it's like, well, you know, fuck everybody else. They shouldn't have these games. It's not about that. It's about like, well, understanding where they stand. Where it's like, Sony, the business model you currently have, not even just have, but like the one that you're deeply entrenched in, and it's the one you established since the beginning, is, it's tethered to the console. And it has been this whole time. And I feel like it all hinges on that, man. It is truly difficult for me to predict. And I think it's difficult for anybody to attempt to predict what next generation is going to look like for Sony. Sony, I don't think they're going to shake things up as much as people expect them to. But there's no denying that even though we talk about Sony's numbers are fine, the PS5 still selling fine, people are buying the Pro, things are going fine. Even though this is true, there is no denying that there is still this thought lingering. There's this kind of tension lingering where it's like, well, a lot of people seem to believe that this is kind of it. Like, this is the high watermark. Like, the PS5 is emulating a lot of the things that the PS4 did right. And so it's like, well, if you just do what you did with the PS4, then you'll find that same level of success. But instead, maybe, increase the prices a little bit across the board and try to do more. Try to find other vectors of growth. But if you do that, and I think, here's what I'm trying to say. I think that when we look at the PlayStation 6 generation, that it's not that clear cut anymore. I don't think it's as simple anymore as if you just kind of, if you have the PlayStation 6 emulate what the PS5 did, you'll find the same type of success. I don't think so. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think we have reached a bit of an inflection point, or at least we're approaching an inflection point where it's Sony could do that. Sony could bank on that. Sony has to make a bet. That's what they have to do. They have to make a bet. And right now they're in the process of deciding which horse are they betting on? Which horse are they betting on? Maybe they're distributing it to a couple different horses. But one of those horses you got to place the bulk of the money on. Which one are you going with? Because whichever you place the bulk of the money on, that's what you believe in the most. And so if we look at these, let's look at those horses, so to speak, right? You have the console, the traditional home console model. You have mobile. You have cloud. You have multi-platform publishing. These are the different horses, right? And I think a lot of the experimentation that Sony's been doing this generation is in preparation for the PS6, to have a better idea, to have a pool of data to look at, to be able to determine, like, all right, this is what we did when it comes to mobile. This is what we did when it comes to cloud. This is what we did when it comes, or PlayStation Plus as well, by the way. This is what we did when it comes to services. This is what we did when it comes to live service. This is what we did when it comes to multi-platform experimentation. This is what we did when it comes to PC support. What are the results? And I'll be honest with you, man, I think the data right now is probably really difficult for Sony to read. Because if I was Sony, I wouldn't really know. And that's why I'm saying I think I would just take a step back and be like, maybe we go back to exclusivity. And I mean that seriously, because it's like, listen, the only mega success that Sony found on PC was Helldivers 2. And that, I'll be honest, like, Sony had nothing to do with that, man. The only thing, it's not that they had nothing to do with it, but Sony let that game release day one on PC and they funded it, which that is something, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay that, but I just mean, like, they didn't expect that in the least. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if I'm Sony and I'm thinking, all right, well, what's some of the standout data we have here? What really stands out to us? Well, Helldivers 2. It's the best-selling PlayStation Studios game of all time, and it's sold the bulk of its sales on PC. So what does that mean? Well, naturally the logic there is, well, maybe we need to do more with PC. But see, that's where things I think get a little bit complicated, because it's like, well, why? You have to ask the why, though. Why did it sell so well on PC? Because look at all your other games. Look at all your other games. And some of them are selling pretty good. A lot of them are flopping now. Some games are just not doing well at all. So you have this one outlier. You have to identify the why. And I'll be honest, it's just like anything else. There is no rhyme or reason, dude. It just got lucky. Like, the studio that made Helldivers 2, they didn't realize that they were building their luck when they were building that game. That, dude, these guys, I don't think they know what they just made. They don't know. They don't see it coming, and neither does Sony. But once this game hits the market, once it hits PS5 and PC, it's going to explode. It's going to hit at the right time, and people are going to love it. Maybe the most you could gather, like if I was Sony, I would think, you know what? All right, how about this? Co-op. Maybe that's the key. Maybe the data tells us that PC players like a game that has a deep level of a deep layer of co-op gameplay. I don't know. Like, would you agree with that? I don't see that's. It's so hard to figure this shit out, and I don't envy anybody at Sony who has to figure it out, because it's like I guess the way I would view things right now is I'd be like, that's awesome, man. Like, look at the type of success we found on PC. This was such a smart idea. The game still would have done pretty well on PS5, certainly. Like, way better than we would have expected on PS5. But man, PC really propelled this thing to the top. Good shit. But then I would also have to look at all the games that are not doing well and think, well, why aren't these games selling? I think it's a little too early to tell. I mean, you have single-player games. Okay. What's a common theme between all these single-player games? They are old. They're 2 years old. They're 3 years old. They're 4 years old. So some of them are selling pretty well. Some of them are just doing okay. Not as good as maybe you would expect. But what do you expect? You release them years later. Okay. All right. Let's look at some day and date releases. Until Dawn Remake, flop. Lego Horizon, flop. Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, flop. Okay. Is it possible that all three of these games are not games that PC players would necessarily be interested in, regardless? Sure. So there's only one thing, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, there's only one thing left for Sony to do. To know what their next step is in the PC space. And that is, I think that you got to release a game day and date. A big single player game, day and date, and you'll have your answer. You'll have your answer. Oh, I see Stephen Leon dropped another $50 super chat. And Jerry A as well. Stephen Leon says, here's more for the Switch. Little sister will have it. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. I will let you know, Mrs. MBG did purchase her Switch. Thanks to your donations. She wanted me to tell you that she ended up going with she did want to get a Switch Lite, and the reason she wanted it was because she wanted the pink one. She said she wants to wait to get the full-blown Switch until the Switch 2 comes out. That's what she said. That don't shoot the messenger, bro. That's what she said. But she did order the pink Switch. I think it's called Coral. I think that's what they call it. But she did get it, and she's looking forward to it. So I'll let you know when it arrives and how she ends up enjoying it. But Steven, thank you so much for that, man. It was very kind of you. Appreciate the generosity you show to the not only the community, but me and Mrs. MEG as well, man. Good stuff. And Jerry, you're saying, I believe Sony wants to take their IPs and license it to a TV show, a movie, an anime, etc. That's how they'd maximize the IP earning potential, and it affects multiple parts of their business. Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's a good take, Jerry. I think that's exactly what Sony's trying to do. Saying, damn, okay, that's for you. Get some beer and take her out for dinner. Well, there you go. Thank you, Steven. It's very kind of you, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, Jerry, I think Sony's kind of made it clear that this is kind of their intent. You know, this is what they want to do, and it's viable. I think it's a smart thing in that, like, well, maybe if we can make a movie and if the movie succeeds, that's more money from the IP. We're extracting more from the IP. But yeah, I think it's a tough one for Sony because I think in the end, Sony would like to achieve more in the console space, but I don't know. I don't know if they believe that they're going to really be able to achieve much more than what they've achieved. Like, how much more is there to conquer? What's interesting is, did you guys see the there's like a leak on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit about how many units of the Switch 2 Nintendo is apparently prepping for launch. And Steven comes in and drops a 10 bomb as well. Steven is out here showing huge support for the channel and the community. Steven, thank you so much for that, man. That brings us up to 15 members on the day. Hellbound dropped 5 earlier, and Steven just dropped 10. So, guys, we're almost there. We're 10 away, and we hit the goal. If we hit the goal, we feed the beast. So we'll see if you guys make it happen today. I very much appreciate that support, Steven. Good stuff. Any news on the God of War movie? Well, they're making a show. They did just get a new showrunner. I just wanted to say though that like, bro, apparently Nintendo's gonna have like 7 million Switch 2 units ready at the launch. That's nuts. That is fucking nuts. And I'm really like, that piqued my interest because I'm like, yo, what's Nintendo looking to achieve here? To put that in perspective, I think the PS5 had about like they sold, I think like 2 million at around the launch. So there's no way Sony had 7 million PS5s ready to go. At least I don't think they did. So I'm not saying they're expecting all 7 million units to be immediately sold like the first month, but I mean that's yeah, I see, and this is what's fascinating to me is does Nintendo see future growth in the console space beyond what the PS2 achieved? I think they do. And you know why I think they do? Because the Switch is on its way to beating the PS2. This is where I think Sony, I think they might be, I think that they would be better off. I don't want to say following Nintendo, but kind of doubling down on this idea that maybe you can go further. Maybe there is more to extract in the console space. I really think I think that Sony's making a handheld, dude. You want me to feed the beast? We need 10 more, dude. We're close. 110 bomb does it. 10 more membership gifts. We hit 25. We feed the beast. But I don't know. I feel like this is something Sony should consider in that, like, well, how well would a PlayStation handheld do now? Should Sony make a hybrid console? Probably not. I'm going to say probably not. You're saying that's not growth if it hasn't beaten an old console. Well, here's the important thing to understand, Dan. You're right, but we have to understand how the PlayStation 2 got to 160 million units. The reality is a lot of non-gamers bought the PS2 for the DVD player. Sony wasn't going to complain. That's good for Sony, but they weren't buying it for its main purpose, which was to play video games and to sell software. I think it's important to understand that the Switch, being this close to beating the PS2, it's doing so solely as a video game machine. A hybrid one, but people aren't buying the Switch for any other reason than they're buying it for games, and a lot of times exclusive games. And its portability factor. And I think that it shows that, wow, like, it can be done, I think. I don't know if the Switch is actually going to surpass the PS2, but keep in mind, if it does surpass the PS2, you're talking about a dedicated video game console, handheld hybrid, that people only bought for games. Beating a console where, not the entirety, but at least a good chunk of those sales. I don't even know what the estimate would be. But a good chunk of those sales came from people buying it just for the DVD player. I think that does indicate growth. I think that means that, there are actually like more gamers that are willing to buy hardware for games in this space. I don't know. I would love to know how bullish Nintendo is going to be with the Switch 2, because I'll never forget. I bring this up frequently. I do. I bring it up frequently. But I'll never forget that time Microsoft was like, we're going to sell 200 million Xbox Ones. I'll never forget that. Because that would have been sick. Microsoft really believed, man. Like they were all in. They were like, yo, the console space, we're gonna grow that shit. And it's so weak, I think, to see that like so many people, so many companies, not so many, but at least Sony and Nintendo, Sony still is trying to do that, but not as aggressively, it seems, as they once were. Microsoft's not at all. And Nintendo, I think Nintendo is the most bullish here. And that's weird to me because it's like, bro, guys, I feel like it shouldn't just be Nintendo here that's bullish on this. But Nintendo is a gaming only company, you know, and that's where Sony is not. Sony is they have multiple divisions, and so does Microsoft. Did I see the Xbox Cloud Gaming news? I actually didn't. Let me see. Starting today, Game Pass Ultimate members can stream select games they own in all 28 countries where xCloud Gaming, the beta, is available. Okay, yeah, I see. You interesting. Yeah, both, dude. See, this is what I mean. Both Sony and Microsoft. Sony announces you can do streaming on the PlayStation Portal now. There's a beta. You can stream PS5 games on the PlayStation Portal. And then Microsoft announces this today. Sony beat them to it. I mean, yeah, this is why I'm not convinced that Sony, specifically Sony, is going to always prioritize the console as much as they are, because they are still doing these things where it's like we got to grow in cloud. We have to have a cloud effort, a cloud push, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I don't really want to play games that way. That's not how I want to play games, but it is interesting because when the PS Portal was announced, dude, we were always like, huh, I wonder, like, I wonder if they're going to do that. And here we are. They did it about a year later. Saying Nintendo just has more broad appeal. Yeah, I do think there's truth to that. See, that's why I don't know that Sony necessarily. My read on Sony is I think that they want to have it all if they can. I think Sony wants to be able to have the type of success in the console space that they have now, and even more so, while simultaneously releasing some games on PC, while simultaneously pursuing cloud, while simultaneously growing their service, and doing all these things at once. And Ray comes in. RU46N2 Ray comes in and drops a single membership gift to bring us up to 16 members on the day. So now we are just 9 away from hitting the goal. Thank you, Ray. I very much appreciate that. Yeah, remember, you guys, if you're able to, you can always drop singles. They do help, and they do contribute. So there we go. You're now... See, boss is lying in wait. He's like, I know it's coming. I know we're going to get there. I also have a direct donation from Blackspeed2X. Thank you, buddy. He says, I think the Switch is doing those numbers because it is a hybrid. Before that, Nintendo were doing those numbers by combining the portable and console. I didn't know that they combined their numbers like that, honestly. That's interesting. Yeah, I think the hybrid factor is a big reason. Yeah, I think the portability of the Switch is obviously one of its biggest selling points and continues to be and will be for the Switch too. And it makes me wonder if when Sony does launch their handheld, right? If that's going to be viewed as like a separate standalone dedicated console that will, or it will be separate and standalone, but the sales units will be counted, like with the PS6. Whoa. Easy, boss. Easy. Oh my God. We have another direct donation from Blackspeed2X. He says the Switch exists because they are losing in the console space, but portable was working great. So great strategy. Yeah, you're right. I kind of am. I mean, I think about like the Wii U, but yeah, it was a pretty smart strategy. I didn't see it coming. I'll be honest. I didn't think it would be as successful as it was. Okay, boss. Okay, drops a single membership gift. Thank you, buddy. I do appreciate the support, man. Okay, just brought us up to 17. Hang tight, boss. I know we're climbing there. We're almost there, dude. He's like, I need my treats, man. We're almost there. Hang tight, boss. Hang tight. Thank you. Okay, I'll add that to the counter here. So 17. We're getting there. We're so close. We're so close. Where are we at here? Whoa. Easy, bud. You can see there. All right, let me go. So I got to ask you guys, for those who do have the PlayStation Portal, how do you feel about Sony announcing how do you feel about Sony announcing the ability to stream PS5 games through the cloud on the PS Portal? Is this something you plan on utilizing? And anybody who doesn't have a Portal, has this piqued your interest? Why? Sony uses Microsoft servers to stream to cloud. It's even funnier. Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I think there was a deal that took place between Sony and Microsoft. They're in cahoots. Boss, I'm sorry. Dude, we're so close, man. I know, just hang in there. I know. Boss is like, I'm starving. I need my treats. Hellbound, you're saying you did try it? It worked good. Only the sound was very low. That's interesting. The sound was low. Okay, but boss, dude, you gotta stop. Oh my god, this guy. He's a big baby. Just face this way. You can't bite my microphone stand, bro. That's what he wants to do. He wants to bite the stand. Saying the PlayStation Portal is now a viable option for gaming. Yeah, it's interesting, man. That's why I don't think Sony's going to take my strategy when it comes to the PlayStation 6. No. You've been playing Demon's Souls on the Portal? Streaming? How is it, Dan? It is interesting that Sony's doing this now. I think it's in preparation for their upcoming handheld. I think everything about the PlayStation Portal is like a beta test for the new dedicated PlayStation handheld. You have really good Wi-Fi. It runs amazingly well. Jerry A, you're saying it's a game changer. Russell, you're saying, can someone explain what cloud streaming is, please? So basically, like, if you have the PlayStation Portal and you're subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium, you can play PS5 games on your PlayStation Portal. You stream it through the cloud. Like, you're not... Bro! Bad kitty. No. Did you guys see him grab it? He grabbed it with his paw. He's like, bring it over. He's like, get over here. You stream it through the cloud, like through a Sony server. You're not streaming it from your PS5. That's the important part. So, in other words, think of it this way. If you don't own a PlayStation 5, you can buy a PlayStation Portal, subscribe to PlayStation Plus Premium, and play PS5 games without owning a PS5. I think that's extremely expensive. At that point, you are basically paying for a PS5, but that's what you can do now. To whereas previously you needed a PS5. Oh my God, bro, are you serious? You could just sit there. If you could just sit there like that, that would be great. That works. You're my co-host. He's purring really loud. Boss is tweaking. He is tweaking. He is. All right. Sorry, I'm just checking to see. Okay. All right. This is Boss's stream now. He shows who's boss. Just give him the snacks before he attacks. Guys, come on, man. You guys are stressing me out. Okay, well, you can't walk on the keyboard, buddy. You have a feeling this is what the Xbox handheld was going to do, and Sony beat them to it. That's why they dropped that Xbox can do it as well. It is pretty funny that they're both like basically announcing it at the same time. You can walk into a Target and instantly start gaming a bunch of games with a premium subscription. I mean, I do think that the upcoming PlayStation handheld, I think it is going to feature an aspect of like cloud streaming that's going to be very significant to it, where I think you'll be able to play PS4 and most PS5 games natively. But for the PS5 games you can't play natively, and maybe even for PlayStation 6 games, you'll use cloud streaming. I could see that. Boss is making me laugh, dude. He's acting so weird. Like, I know you can't see him, but he keeps bringing his paw up and he's like, all right, let me see where we're at time-wise. Okay, we passed the 2-hour mark. All right, so guys, I'm probably going to keep the stream going for another 5 minutes or so, maybe 10 minutes at most. I had to do a lot of ranting today. Telling boss to slap me. I had to do a lot of ranting today. I don't know. I couldn't help it, you know? I got too triggered. I got too frustrated. I just I don't understand some of the stuff that's going on these days, you know? I don't get it. GeForce Now enables better performance in the Pro. I did see with GeForce Now though that GeForce Now subscribers were fucking pissed. Okay? Like they announced something like after a certain amount of time, like you have to pay for more time. And I saw that people were very pissed off about that, which it is kind of shitty, you know. That is pretty shitty. But I don't know. I've never used GeForce Now, so I can't say. "20 hours into Stalker. All the jank is true, but I'm still loving it." Yeah, it seems like generally speaking, Stalker's a pretty good game, but it's being held back by its performance issues right now. Maybe they just didn't want to delay it anymore. I mean, I think Stalker 2 got delayed like quite a few times, right? If I'm not mistaken. Oh, my YouTube studio crashed again. I just love it when that happens. Sorry, guys, I can't see anything. My chat disappeared. Mango, you're saying I used to stream all of my PC games free from GeForce Experience. They changed that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about how it worked before. I've heard good things about it though. I heard GeForce Now is pretty good. I mean, okay, you've talked about it. You've been saying how it does seem to give a glimpse into the future potential of cloud gaming. It's a curated list that you can stream, but the games you bought have to be played via remote play. That's something I think that will change with the dedicated PlayStation handheld. I do think that will change. I think next generation, what Sony's going to do is they're going to have a PlayStation 6, really powerful home console, and they're going to offer I mean, I don't know what they'll call it, but it'll essentially be a PlayStation, like a complementary console or a standalone console, depending on how you want to use it, where it will be a console they sell around the same time as the PlayStation 6. I don't think they're going to call it like the PlayStation 6 portable or anything like that. I mean, maybe they could, but you will be able to, like I said, you'll be able to buy that and it'll be the PlayStation Store, the same UI. It'll be in a handheld form factor. It'll be expensive, but it'll be very capable. You'll be able to play PS4 games, most PS5 games, and you will be able to stream games as well. And I think it'll be integrated with the PlayStation 6 to where, like, if you have both the PlayStation 6 and the new PlayStation handheld, any game you buy on your PlayStation 6, like, you'll gain access to your entire library on this PlayStation handheld. I think these are things that are purposely being held back from the PlayStation Portal because, you know, I think it does make more sense to keep that stuff for the full-fledged new handheld. And what I think the reason why Sony's going to take this approach is because they're going to basically do what Nintendo did, which is PS6 sales and PlayStation Portable sales will be counted as one. So if the PlayStation 6, you know, if they announce the PlayStation 6 has broke a record or something, of how many units we sold day one, it's because they're also going to be counting the PlayStation handheld. I think they're going to release it at the same time. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's a mistake. But I think that might be what they do. And Black Speed 2X comes in and he drops a single membership gift. Boss sees that. He sees it. He sees it on screen. He's like, I'm getting excited. So Black Speed 2X brings us to where are we at? 18. Guys, we're so close. We're going to be wrapping up in a couple minutes. We're so close. Will we be able to do it? Boss, please don't break that. 7 more. 7 more memberships, and we feed the beast, and we can close it out strong. Boss, please, man, no, don't stop. No, don't you start biting me. Don't. Oh my God, boss. Frank, you're saying just remember we love you. That's all that matters. Thank you, Frank. I do appreciate that. I think I'm feeling the love. I have to get him a little muzzle. Yeah, I appreciate the super chat, Frank. That's kind of you. I mean, yeah, I don't really I don't want to end the stream yet because we're so close, you know? Like we're so close. It feels I feel like a lot of people they want to see the feeding of the beast. But if I end it now, real men say I love you, bro. Frank says virtual hug. Well, thank you for that, Frank. I do appreciate that. That's nice, man. It's kind of you. Boss, you're going to break it. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. Stop. No, no, no. Boss, would you like some tea? You want some tea? No? That's strong. Feed him off stream. I mean, I don't know. Will he get the treats off stream if we don't hit the goal? Now boss knows what Xbox fans feel like waiting for games. Damn. Is this true? Is this true, boss? Now they're gonna know. Oh, Steven does it! Steven does it! Steven dropped the 10 bomb! You ready?
Boss, do you read me? It's time to feed the beast.
It's time. Steven's like, I got this, bro. I'll carry it. I'll carry it. He drops the 10 bomb. Boss is like, finally. I've waited so long. Man, boss, you earned this one, though, for real. It was like almost 2.5 hours he waited. He was patient most of the time. Steven comes in clutch again, man. Steven, you did a lot today, bro. I really appreciate that, for real. That actually brought us up to 28 members. So you obliterated the goal, bro. And thank you to everybody else who contributed, whether it be through memberships or super chats or direct donations. I haven't been saying it lately at the beginning of my streams, probably just because I don't want to become overly redundant and just saying it over and over again. But yeah, you guys are the sponsors of the channel. You know, and anytime you drop a super chat, anytime you drop a membership gift, anytime you drop a direct donation, just know that you're contributing in a way that does make the biggest difference. You know, it allows me to continue to do this, and it allows me to continue to have my meltdowns, you know, my necessary meltdowns for the first hour and 15 minutes of the stream, where I become a deranged lunatic, losing his mind. But at the very least, maybe makes for some entertaining content. I'm not sure. But thank you so much for all the support, guys. It does mean a lot. Sincerely. I don't know if Luna's in here, by the way. I haven't seen her. Boss, there's no way you finished all those treats. Holy shit. I'm gonna have to give him a couple more. He literally inhaled them. And I gave him a good amount. I think these are kitten treats too. Maybe that's why. He's like, more! More! If I could have a sponsor, hypothetically, what sponsor would you choose and why? Keeps. Is that what it's called? I don't know. I think that's the right, you know, where it's all about, it's a product for balding men so they can keep their hair. No, I'm just kidding. If anything, it would be the opposite for me. I wouldn't be able to help them. I don't know. Like, to be honest, I'm not sure at this point in time. Maybe like a, I don't know, like a, I think, honestly, I think a cool one would, even though I have not been working out, I'll be honest, I've fallen off so bad, like I'm scared about whenever I do get fully better and recovered. I'm afraid of how difficult it's going to be to get back into the swing of things, back into shape. But there you go. Yeah, I was going to say supplements, but Hellbound's like, bro, yeah, Hellbound and Steve are like cat treats, Chewy. Yeah, that would be cool. A cat treat sponsorship would be great, just because. Although I don't think they would pay me, but like they give me free product, you know? Maybe. What? What was that, bro? Are you okay? I. What just happened? Sounded like something fell. But I was gonna say a supplement as well. You know, um, like a protein supplement or something like that. Something along those lines. Even though we don't really talk fitness or anything here, I mean we do sometimes, but I don't know that I would want anything gaming related. Truthfully, I don't know that I would want anything gaming related. I should have got a sponsorship from the company that makes this chair. That's what I should have done. Boss fell. Oh, he fell? Is that what that noise was? I didn't see. I did hear a noise, but I didn't see what happened. You still don't understand what Sony gets out of buying FromSoft other than revenue. Sony's already won the console war. Do they need more exclusives? I mean, probably not. Oh, by the way, Chewy is where I bought. Mrs. MBG reminded me. Chewy is where I bought this cat tower from. So, I don't know. Maybe one day. I think one time I got a sponsorship for like a shock collar or something, or an offer, a product offer. I don't even think it was a sponsorship. I think it was just like they're like, can you review this shock collar for us? And I'm like, what? I don't even know if it was real. It probably wasn't real. But it shows that MBG, the first thing you went for was health and fitness and not gaming. Yeah, I got to get back on it though, man. The past like 2 months have been a bit rough. I still have some kind of stomach problem and getting sick every other week. It's like, Jesus, man. I'm just trying to feel normal and okay so I can get back into a workout routine. Boss shot collar. That's so messed up. Saying your cousin just died of a heart attack while working out. I'm so scared to work out again. Oh, geez, I'm sorry to hear that, Ms. Biz. That is scary. I mean, yeah, you do got to be careful, you know, like working out and exercising. You know, I'm not a believer in necessarily pushing yourself to your limit. I know a lot of people do believe in that, and that's like kind of what they strive for. But I'm not, because I don't. I think every now and again, maybe to test yourself, but I don't think like when you're just working out regularly to maintain your fitness and your health, I don't think it's necessarily a good thing to push yourself to your limit all the time. I think that can actually be maybe a little bit dangerous, you know, truthfully. But there are a lot of different factors. It's different for everybody. Yeah, I mean, if you're going for failure with muscle, you know, weight training and trying to build muscle, it can be dangerous. But you know, your body tries to send you signals. Like the reason why I haven't been working out is because the last time I tried to weight train, it like made my stomach feel a lot worse. And I was really annoyed. Like really, really annoyed. I'm like, God damn, like I can't work out now. So I'm waiting to see like a GI doctor and, you know, get looked at and figure out if there's like a hernia or something like that. But that was disappointing. Yeah. So I've been wanting to work out, but it's like I don't want to necessarily make anything worse. I don't feel comfortable lifting weights until I know why my stomach is in so much pain when I go to work out. Ego lifting equals muscle tears equals wreck your body. Yeah, muscle tears are no joke, dude. I've never had one, luckily, but muscle tears, yeah, that's... Steven, you're saying you're going through that, started on metformin again, you're diabetic. Yeah, I mean, I'm not diabetic, but I know that diabetes, it's brutal. You got to make sure you keep a good hold of it. Got to watch your diet. Got to try to exercise. Saying, yeah, get that GI checked. It can be everything. Yeah, I still don't know what it is, you know? But I think in about 2 weeks, I'll be seeing the GI, and I don't know if I'll necessarily get answers that day, but I'll be on the road to getting some answers. And I'm looking forward to that because this has been, I'll be honest, it's been driving me nuts. I don't know what, I've been talking to you guys about it, but like back in mid-September, so it's been about 2 months. Back in mid-September, I just suddenly, horrible acid reflux, GERD, so bad. It was wrecking my body, wrecking my esophagus and my throat and everything. Waking up choking and shit. It was really bad. And I went to the doctor, they put me on some acid reduction medication, but I still don't feel quite right. Even when I'm taking the acid reduction medication, I still don't feel quite right. Like it still feels like something's just not what it should be. And I've been doing my own research, which is not necessarily a good thing because it's not going to give me answers. But was I eating late or do I eat late? I mean, I'll be honest, my diet is utter trash, or at least it was. So it's one of these things where it's like, yeah, it's not like I was eating some kind of really healthy, clean diet prior to it triggering and happening. But it was very sudden. That's what's weird. It was very, very sudden. The only thing I remember, listen, this is the only thing I remember, and I don't know if it has anything to do with it, but it just kind of sticks out in my mind. At around the time it happened, I remember that I was helping move some furniture, and I had to specifically move this extremely heavy sofa. Extremely heavy. And it was very difficult. And all I remember is that was at around the same time. That's when this started. And I don't want to, I can't know, I won't know what it is until I get it checked and, see a doctor and get testing done. But I'm just saying, like, it's been like a psychological battle, dude. It has been. Like, you don't, I feel like you have acid reflux sometimes and you're like, man, this sucks. But then it goes away very quickly. Maybe it's just something you ate, but I've never had it like this to where it's like, this is like ruining my life. So I'm not used to it. But yeah, not being able to work out. That's becoming a bit depressing. Dr. Google be scaring the heck out of people. Yeah, it is. Like that's like my biggest problem is I don't know how to relax. I'm an extremely high strung anxiety person when it comes to this type of stuff where I feel like I need answers right away and it doesn't work like that. If you got something going on with your health, usually takes a bit of time. And so I'm just like, well, I'll just Google everything. And it's like, it could be helpful sometimes. It can be helpful sometimes, but most of the time it's just like, you're just reading a bunch of stuff you may have. Some of it sounds really bad, but there's no way for you to know that. So my mind immediately goes to, oh, well, I must have that, And so you're saying your acid reflux can get really bad, so you know how it feels. You have to go to the doctor, and it's not just the diet that's the contributing factor. It's genetics and stress as well. I noticed ever since I started streaming every day. This is when this started. I think you guys are doing this to me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I totally get where you're coming from. It is more than just diet. And yeah, it's like I said, man, if I found out that it's just like, bro, you're getting older now and it all caught up with you. My diet, again, has been utter trash for years now. There have been like a few times where I eat better, short stints, but generally speaking, it's been really bad. Yeah, that's very true, Steven. The mind can be the worst thing. The mind can be the biggest enemy. You know? Ever since I stopped playing Xbox. Hopefully you didn't get a hernia. Yeah, I mean that I it's hard for I don't know what to think of that, you know? Where it's like the suddenness of it is what I think. I don't know. I'm not even going to bother speculating. I don't know. I'll find out. I'll find out, right? I'm eager to get some answers because at least if I get some answers, I'll know how to proceed and what to do. Right now, I don't really know what to do. That's the problem. Like, I don't know if working out is is going to make it worse, or if it's not in my head, but like it actually has nothing to do with it. I don't know if I guess the only thing I do know is just try to eat healthier and cleaner and smaller meals and stuff that's not too acidic. I also realize I got to stay on my acid reduction medication because I stopped taking it for a while. And I don't know. See, that's what's kind of weird about it is I felt like I was getting a little bit better, but then just like out of nowhere, it just came back again, you know? So I was like I'm like, oh, and maybe you guys remember, I think it was like a week and a half ago, I was streaming and I'm like, oh, I think my stomach's finally starting to get better. And then like about 4 days later, it just came back full force, even worse. And I'm like, oh shit. So I immediately went back on the medication. I don't know. I apologize for all my bitching and complaining, but you know, it's just one of these things where shit happens, especially as you get older, and you got to kind of figure out how to deal with it on the fly. There's no rule manual. There's no guide in life necessarily. Sometimes you just got to go through these experiences. You blame Xbox fans for my acid reflux. I mean, yeah, I don't know. You saw how I was losing my mind early in the stream. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I got a problem, dude. Maybe I have to change my content format. Maybe I have to start talking about more peaceful stuff and stuff that doesn't get me as worked up. Saying, no problem, we need to get this out. It's stressing you out and it's good to talk about. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Damn, dude, you hit 300 blood sugar. Yeah, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. Okay. All right, perfect ending here. Luna just entered the domain. Luna, it's time. She's a little late to the party, but better late than never. I don't think Luna likes me. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like I don't know if it's her breed of cat, but like she acts like threatened. Like she feels threatened. Like I make her feel threatened and I don't do anything. Like I just go up to her and I want to pet her. And I notice that she's getting older. She's getting a bit like I'm starting to get nervous. She's like, "You're gonna attack me?" And she has a couple times, you know, like not aggressive, but just like a defensive little attack. And I'm like, I'm not attacking you. So she makes me nervous. Kirby, you're saying anybody else absolutely terrified about the possibility of nuclear war after this week's developments? Yeah, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. Yeah. I'm not going to go too like deep into it, Kirby, but it is scary to see things just suddenly escalating. But I'll be honest, man, like the thing that I'm not saying this will necessarily bring you comfort or anybody else comfort, but it does bring me a little bit of comfort in some sick way. When I start to feel like, I immediately remind myself that, dude, you have zero control over what happens. There's nothing you can do at all. So don't worry about it. It's like in the same way that if you were to leave your home today and get into a car accident or get hit by a car or something. Like, there's nothing you could do. Like, that could happen. Is it worth worrying about? Probably not. Does it mean be reckless and be stupid? No, but it just means you can't worry about it because you don't know. You don't know. So I would say, and you have no control over it. You know, that's the point. To me, this is kind of the same thing where it's like, whatever's going on with these conflicts and how it's escalating, I have no control over it. You don't want to be a victim to it, but we don't necessarily get to decide that, do we? How is Luna with Mrs. MBG? She seems to be better with Mrs. MBG than me. Like, she just got this look, man. Like, she just ain't fucking around. She's got this, like, dead serious look. Like don't do it. Don't do it. Like, do I just want to pay you? Like, yeah, don't do it. I got a feminist cat. I'm just kidding. It's probably Boss that did this. She probably sees how close I am with Boss and is like, yeah, I don't like that Boss guy. So, but yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from, Kirby. But what are we going to do? You know, what are we going to do? Oh, okay. My bad. I was trying to let the stream go to the 2.5 hour mark, and I realized we're over that now. So, all right, guys. I think this is going to be a good place for me to wrap the stream up. I've been kind of just rambling a little bit the past like 10 or 15 minutes or so, but I hope you guys did enjoy the stream today. It was definitely an intense one. So I hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, I want to extend a big thank you to everybody who watched, you know, those who watched live, those who watched later on. I very much appreciate the viewership. You know, you guys make it possible. I want to also extend a big thank you to everybody who showed direct support. Steven did some heavy lifting today. Steven, thank you so much, man. And to everybody else, you know, dropping super chats, membership gifts, anything in between, it really does help and it means a lot. So thank you for making today's stream a success. And also, I don't know if he's here right now, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do the timestamps, but shout out to Devil Shooter for always doing the timestamps and keeping up with it, even as he's trying to take care of his dog and figure out what's going on. So, Devil, don't know if you're here today, man, but we wish you and Bo the best, and thank you for what you do. And yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up. So enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to go try to chill out a little bit and enjoy the rest of my day. Oh, there. All right, cool. I see you, Devil. Yeah, you're welcome, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Later, I'm probably going to go play some more Until Dawn. It's getting good. Really enjoying that game. So, all right, guys. Hopefully, I'll catch you here again tomorrow with some new topics and some new unhinged rants. So that does it. Take care, everyone. I'll catch you in the next one.